People who desperately need a dentist, and gentlemen. In this particular video, folks, I'm going to prove that Old Fart Grunts, aka No Reference Rants, uses a term he doesn't really know what it means. He sort of kind of gets at it. Assault weapons. And I'll have some screenshots from his videos displaying his ignorance on this, and get into a few other semi-related issue. But here's a question I left for Old Fart Grunts on the Athena's Conquest channel, September 16th, 2013. I said, I have a question for you, little feller. It seems you don't really know what an assault weapon is, do you? You've done a few vids where you wander aimlessly for a thought saying assault weapons aren't needed, but it appears you don't even know how progressives like the Clinton administration categorize an assault weapon. So when you say assault weapon, what do you mean, old man? Remember when you told Nitro that you diligently research everything. I don't think so. I never received a response to that. Here's another one from October 15th, 2013 on the Jeremy Oyer 1 channel. And I asked him basically the same thing again. And by the way, you know, he has admitted he did not study the Bible for 50 years. Asking him on this assault weapon ban, does he mean the Clinton administration definition? Because I don't think he's read the legislation. He does. This is why he does generalized videos. As you'll see, he doesn't provide references either. A shocker. And you can see from his response there, he did not want to respond. He's done this before where he's debated me on issues, but I've recorded his comments and burned him with it later. So he's trying to avoid it. Here's another one from September 9th, 2013 on the Athena's Conquest channel. And I said, I have a question for you, little feller. When you banter on endlessly about assault weapons, what exactly do you mean? Are you using the Clinton administration definition? Here he starts talking about kooky again in his response. He doesn't want to answer. He wants to stay generalized. So you can see there, folks, I've given him ample opportunity to answer this question, and he doesn't want to answer because he knows he'll get nailed later because he hasn't done any research on this. Let's get to some screenshots quick in his own videos. Guns Don't Sell Guns by No Reference Rants. And the note I posted there. Notice the lack of references below his video so others can check out where he's getting his info from. 8th graders should be able to do this, but he doesn't. He has no references in there. And he comes up with some really ridiculous arguments here. One of them says the NRA, this is an ad populum appeal that he uses a lot. The NRA and gun nuts oppose any attempt to pass reasonable laws, ambiguous language alert. To make domestic terrorism, most gun homicides are committed by a person with a previous criminal history. I'm not sure exactly what he means by domestic terrorism. Have you looked at the demographics of homicides with a gun and homicides overall, little fella? Have you? Nobody should be against closing the gun show loophole, which we'll get to that later. And he has done no research on that. Nobody should be against making it illegal to own an assault-type weapon, whatever that means, and high-capacity magazines. He doesn't define high capacity. Does it mean more than 10 rounds, more than 15 rounds? Not sure. I don't think he even knows what he means. And again, at the bottom of the video, nowhere in there, no references whatsoever, aka No Reference Rants. And you got his Enough is Enough video by No Reference Rants. I've already refuted that. He says, no wonder we have the highest number of deaths per year from guns in the world, but he doesn't adjust for population size. Why not, little fella? You do know how to adjust for population size. You do know that's how they compile homicide statistics per 100,000 or per 1 million, depending on what literature you read. And he says, thanks to the NRA, we have laws in some states which allow you to shoot first and ask questions later. That's typical of him. A one-sentence evaluation of stand your ground laws, which he got off a blog. But here he does actually get into give us a little hint at what he means. No American citizen really needs an assault rifle or a pistol with a 30-round clip. And then here's his ad populum appeal. Whether you like it or not, the majority of Americans want gun control laws. You've obviously never read a book on philosophy. So As you can see right there, he is very ignorant. Let's get to the Clinton administration definition of this, which he didn't know. And this will go to the assault weapons ban that was passed in 1994, not long before Republicans took over Congress. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994. And you go to section 110, and again I have all the relevant links underneath the video as per usual. Go to section 110.102, and we find out the pertinent information here. Definition of semi-automatic assault weapon. You go down to here, section B, a semi-automatic rifle that has, and I did mention to him that these assault weapons ban, this assault weapons ban, excuse me, I can hardly talk, under Clinton focused on cosmetic features. So, a semi-automatic rifle that has an ability to accept a detachable magazine and has at least two of the following: a folding or telescoping stock, a pistol grip that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the weapon, a bayonet mount, a flash suppressor or threaded barrel designed to accommodate a flash suppressor, and a grenade launcher. And then you got a semi-automatic pistol that has an ability to accept a detachable magazine and has at least two of the following cosmetic features. Again, an ammunition magazine that attaches to the pistol outside of the pistol grip, a threaded barrel capable of accepting a barrel extender, flash suppressor, forward hand grip, or silencer, a shroud that is attached to or partially or completely encircles the barrel that permits the shooter to hold the firearm with the non-trigger hand without being burned. So you see how this doesn't make these weapons, many of these cosmetic features, they don't make these weapons any more dangerous. A semi-automatic shotgun that has at least two of the following, at least two of a folding or telescoping stock, a pistol grip that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the weapon, a fixed magazine capacity in excess of 5 rounds, or the ability to accept a detachable magazine. So you see how that could be manipulated to where if they don't have two of those features, then it's not an assault weapon. But if they add, as a second feature, a folding or telescoping stock, then somehow it becomes an assault weapon and becomes super dangerous. So, again, Old Fart Rants has not read any of this. And as you saw, he whined like a little girl about nobody needs a 30-round magazine. So the Clinton administration basically set that at more than 10 rounds of ammunition. John Kerry, when he was a senator, and Chuck Schumer have proposed legislation of the same variety where no magazine with more than 10 rounds of ammunition would be legal. But they've also said that they would an exception would be made for .22 rifles. Well, the problem is even for a Ruger .22 long rifle, you can get a 50-round magazine. So, and you can kill somebody with a .22. Obviously, and with a rifle, the velocity of the bullet when it hits its target is going to be a lot more than it would be for a handgun. So, if they're trying to make an exception for .22 long rifles, well, then you can get a hold of a 50-round magazine for that. I'll also mention Old Fart Rants will not do a response to this video, but he will banter endlessly about stuff being boring and items like that because he doesn't get into details. And I've gone through a lot of this stuff, a lot of this data that I'm going to go over in the rest of this video. I've already covered in one of my playlists, particularly my 3 responses to an idiot named Other Dude Productions. So a lot of this I've already gone over before. Old Fart has done zero research on this. As you can see, the Clinton era assault weapons ban was a joke. It had no discernible effect on homicide or violent crime. It was useless. It did, however, hurt some law-abiding citizens. So Old Fart, as we'll see in a moment here, his zest or zeal from progressives to ban what they call high-capacity magazines won't work. It will have no discernible effect on violent crime. We need to address the issue of some common fallacies about bullet stopping power. The only gunshot wound that can reliably cause immediate incapacitation is a hit to the brain or upper spinal cord. Even after being shot through the heart, a suspect still has enough oxygen in his blood to shoot back for 15 seconds. Additionally, bullets do not have the energy to knock down humans. If that were the case, then the energy traveling in the opposite direction, the recoil would knock the shooter down as well. An FBI report on handgun wounds provides an interesting example. 10-pound weight equals the impact of a 9mm bullet when dropped from a height of 0.72 inches and equals the impact of a .45 when dropped from 1.37 inches. I'm not saying it's like in the movies, you know, where a man gets shot and, you know, he goes flying back through several tables. You know, they sensationalize it. And I'm not saying every attacker, would-be attacker, would be like some of them in the movies where they do take multiple shots and keep going ridiculously. But there are instances where your attacker will not be incapacitated by one shot unless you get him, even if you get him right to the heart, or the back of the head and the spinal cord. The chances of getting a fatal hit on the first shot, well, depending on how good of a shot you are, and of course when you practice, you can never really replicate the heat of the moment situation where a would-be rapist or burglar or someone trying to kill you. It's hard to do that, so I need to mention that. Here's another interesting point. Police officers who are highly trained, most of them are competent, some of them are not, but they are trained to handle a firearm and presumably are good marksmen. However, according to a New York Police Department report, there were 16 officer-involved shootings in 2005 where the suspects shot at police officers. The NYPD officers hit their targets 8% of the time. The officers fired an average of 17.3 rounds to stop the threat. One factor that certainly contributed to the low percentage of hits is that in 70% of the gunfights, the suspects shot first. Other studies have officer-involved shootings at a 51% hit rate, but they don't include officer-involved shootings that have no hits, and they don't isolate gunfights where the suspect is shooting at the officer. Another consideration is a situation involving multiple attackers. Florida State University criminologist Gary Kleck conducted a detailed survey on incidents of firearms being used for self-defense. Kleck found that in 53% of annual defensive gun uses in the U.S., the victims faced multiple attackers. All the concerns regarding stopping power and accuracy are now magnified when multiple attackers are involved. However many rounds were needed to stop one attacker will have to be doubled for two attackers. So if you want little Miss Susie Homemaker, let's say she lives on the south side of Chicago, and you want to limit her to nothing but a revolver, which we'll get to, if she's a good speed loader, she can get around that. But let's say we limited civilians to, you know, legally possess nothing but revolvers. If she's got 3 men or 2 men armed with knives or guns or clubs trying to get in her home, and police officers miss their target that much, how much harder will it be for little Miss Susie Homemaker to defend her home? And again, this is data Old Fart Rants doesn't go over because he's generalized. He specializes in generalized rants, and his sheep, of course, lap it up like a dog returning to its vomit. But when New York police officers can't hit their target from 7 yards or less, even half the time, well, what about little Miss Susie Homemaker, who is getting her house broken into? Maybe we should just limit everybody to revolvers. Speaking of which, this limit on high-capacity magazines wouldn't stop a psycho if he knows, especially if this psycho is intelligent and knows how to handle a firearm. Here's a video, Army Pro Shooting Tips, how to speed reload a pistol. 6-round magazine, speed reload, and this guy discharges 18 rounds in no time flat. So if you've got a guy who's hell-bent on going on a rampage and he can't get a magazine with more than 6 rounds, that probably isn't going to stop him unless there's someone else there with a firearm and they get him first. Probably not going to stop him from discharging 18 rounds really quickly. Then you've got another case where people, they can jungle clip. It's called jungle clipping magazines together. So again, another instance where you're not going to deter a psycho, but you will hurt law-abiding citizens. And Old Fart Rants tries to paint himself as some sort of moderate on the gun control issue, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. Reminds me of all these progressives who propose all this legislation, don't know the difference between a magazine and a clip, don't know what an assault weapon is, but they throw terms around. It's pretty silly when you use a term you don't understand. And then you got a revolver reload with speed loaders. And this guy gets off a dozen shots in no time flat. So if you did, let's say we banned all guns but revolvers, a person who knows what he's doing and is hell-bent on going on a rampage, well, he'll use a speed loader and he can probably get 18 shots off rather quickly, unless, of course, there's somebody else in there that has a gun. And if it's a gun-free zone, well, the law-abiding citizens will, there's a good chance that the law-abiding citizen, the man who has no criminal history but has a concealed carry permit, will not have a gun in there, so the guy's going to get off 18 shots. And if his accuracy is like that of a police officer, he won't get a fatal hit half the time, but if, he could take out 7 or 8 people. Then you've got a bolt-action Winchester, where this guy here, in this video on your screen now, disperses 13 rounds in about 11 seconds. So you can see a case there where a guy, if he's hell-bent on going on a rampage, if there's a large crowd of people, he doesn't necessarily need to be a good shot, but he can get off 13 rounds rather quickly. So banning high-capacity magazines, whether you limit it to 15 rounds or less or 10 rounds or less, won't have a discernible effect on violent crime. And it will only help people who don't give a damn about gun laws in the first place. And now our last piece of business is Old Fart's unreferenced and uninformed statements concerning the so-called gun show loophole. Again, no references there. He put no references. But he did use some generalized BS because he is a dumbass. We got some information here from the Government Accountability Office report from May of 2010. And my point here is the federal government has to do a better job of enforcing existing law. We don't need new gun laws. We need, pertain to background checks, we need the government to do a better job of enforcing existing law. In May 2009, we reported that from February 2004 through February 2009, a total of 963 NICS background checks resulted in valid matches with individuals on the terrorist watch list. Of these transactions, approximately 90% were allowed to proceed because the checks revealed no prohibiting information such as felony convictions, illegal immigrant status, or other disqualifying factors. 2 of the 865 transactions that were allowed to proceed involved explosives background checks. The FBI does not know how often a firearm was actually transferred or if a firearm or explosives license or permit was granted, because gun dealers and explosives dealers are required to maintain but not report this information to the NICS section. About 10% of the transactions were denied based on the existence of prohibiting information. No transactions involving explosives background checks were denied. For today's hearing, we obtained updated statistics from the FBI through February 2010. Specifically, from March 2009 through February 2010, FBI data show that 272 NICS background checks resulted in valid matches with individuals on the terrorist watch list. One of the 272 transactions involved an explosives background check, which was allowed to proceed because the check revealed no disqualifying factors under the Safe Explosives Act. According to FBI officials, several of the 272 background checks resulted in matches to watch list records that, in addition to being in the FBI's known or suspected terrorist file, were on the TSA's no-fly list. In general, persons on the no-fly list are deemed to be a threat to civil aviation or national security and therefore should be precluded from boarding an aircraft. According to FBI officials, all these transactions were allowed to proceed because the background checks revealed no prohibiting information under current law. In total, individuals on the terrorist watch list have been involved in firearm and explosives background checks 1,228 times since NICS started conducting these checks in February 2004, of which 1,119, about 91% of the transactions, were allowed to proceed, while 109 were denied, as shown in Table 1. So these people were flagged, and they knew they weren't allowed to board an airplane or own a firearm or get an explosives license, but somehow it still got through, even though they were flagged. So I think the federal government needs to do a better job, NICS needs to do a better job of when these individuals are flagged, of denying them, not allowing those to proceed. So you didn't know that either, did you? And then the gun show loophole, getting specifically to that, it should be mentioned, if you are a federally licensed firearms dealer and you are at a gun show, you have to conduct a background check on a prospective gun buyer. Now, if you're not a federally licensed firearms dealer and you're a private individual there selling a gun, you do not have to do that background check. Just like if a friend at work sells me a .22, they don't have to do a background check. But in California, you're required to do that, and if they find out that you sold a gun privately and that person would be barred, they would come after you. But if you're a federally licensed firearms dealer and you're at a gun show, you have to do the background check by law, or there's stiff penalties. Now, as far as criminals getting, and John McCain is one Republican that's on the gun show loophole bandwagon. He wants to shut down gun shows. He's an idiot. How many criminals actually commit a crime with a handgun and get that handgun from a flea market or gun show? Again, I've been over this before in my responses to Other Dude Productions. Among prisoners who carried a firearm during the offense for which they were serving time in 1997, 14% had bought or traded for the gun from a store, pawn shop, flea market, or gun show. The 1997 percentage who had acquired their firearm at a retail outlet represented a significant drop from 21% in 1991. The percentage of inmates receiving their gun from family or friends rose from 34% in 1991 to 40% in 1997. And you can see flea market or gun show. In 1991, 1.9% of those prison inmates got their firearm from a flea market or a gun show. 1.9%. It was 1.7% in 1997. So, wow. You didn't know that, though, did you, little fella? Idiot. Then you got recidivists and first-timers. Compare their numbers for flea market, where they got their handgun, or their firearm, I should say, from a flea market or gun show. Very small percentage. They're under 2% every time. Much ado about nothing from Old Fart Rants, who does not know what he's talking about. Will also show that most of the time a gun they do get, it's not a rifle. It's not one of those big bad evil assault rifles. That is a loaded term. In 2004, among state prison inmates who possessed a gun at the time of offense, less than 2%. So the trend continues, the low trend. Less than 2% bought their firearm at a flea market or gun show, and 40% obtained their firearm from an illegal source. They'll get it from a relative, they'll get it from a drug dealer, they'll get it from some other illegal source on the street that does not give a damn about gun laws. In 2004, there you can see the percentages went actually down from 1997% of state prison inmates who purchased or traded their firearm, the source being a flea market or gun show. Low percentage there. Oh, the street or illegal source, or family or friend. That's about 80% of them, almost 80%. So I don't know. Old Fart Rants doesn't know where he's getting his information from either. There's the stats. Not many of them, when they obtain a firearm illegally, it's usually not an assault rifle either. As I've belabored the point before, most gun homicides are the perpetrator uses a handgun. They're not using an assault rifle. So Old Fart Rants is an idiot, and that's why he does not get into details. He does short, generalized videos, and I will continue to belabor that point. He doesn't get into details. And if you do get into details, it takes a while, and he will use the boring card. But I think I've owned you pretty good again, and it's going to continue. But here's a little bonus segment. Old Fart's whiny video, No Gun for You, by No Reference Rants. He talks about Arizona having some of the loosest gun laws in the country. And then, of course, he violates Godwin's law. That's one of his favorite things to do. What about Vermont? You should do a video on Vermont's gun laws. And go over their demographics, too. Population demographics, would you, little fella? Do that for me, please. And I think I've effectively undermined all your BS, old farts, old fart grunts. You are a dumbass.
I don't have 10 cents.